The deep state is showing its true colors tonight, Patriots. Pete Hegseth, the decorated combat veteran with 2 Bronze Stars, is under attack from the very establishment he's pledged to reform. We've got explosive new details about how Joni Ernst and her Rhino allies are trying to torpedo his nomination, and wait until you hear why. Does it have something to do with the billions in artillery contracts flowing through Iowa? The military-industrial complex is trembling at the prospect of a real warrior taking control of the Pentagon. It's not just about a nomination. It's about the future of American military leadership. And Patriots, speaking of military leadership, did you know the American dollar used to represent real strength, just like our armed forces? But in 1971, politicians stripped our currency of its gold backing. It's been losing value ever since. Meanwhile, military brass get richer while our soldiers struggle, and that's why I trust Global Gold Investments. They understand real value just like real warriors do. Call that number on the screen, 888-700-4148, and mention Next News for their Wealth 2024 Protection Guide and a free portfolio analysis. Don't let your retirement get ambushed by inflation. Secure your future with America's leading precious metals company. Call that number, 888-700-4148, or visit IRAGoldproof.com. Mention Gary Franchi for up to $1,000 in free silver with your retirement rollover this December. Now, let's get into it. So, Pete Hegseth's under fire. There's been a lot of new nominations. We're going to get to some of those later in the segment. But the deep state doesn't want this guy taking the reins of the Pentagon. They certainly don't. And we have some idea as to why. Let's listen to what Joni Ernst has to say. She's one of the biggest opponents here.
It has been, I think we can all recognize it has been a very emotional day. What I took away is that President Zelensky really is a fearless leader, and he is extremely inspirational to his people and to the rest of the world. But what we heard from the president this morning, President Zelensky, was that they need more help. They don't need it yesterday, tomorrow. They need it today. And we need to step up, and America must do more. Providing the Ukrainians with the type of lethal aid they need, which, yes, includes MiGs, provides for air superiority, provides for additional surface-to-air missiles. Whatever those means are, this administration should be signaling to President Zelensky, we are here to help, and we are here to provide. And by doing so, that will signal...
I mean, wait a minute, Joni. Haven't we already signaled that? How many more billions do we need to send to Ukraine? I mean, I think we've been pretty damn clear.
To Putin that we are together as NATO allies and partners standing strongly.
Yeah, but Ukraine isn't part of NATO. So, did you miss the memo?
Behind Ukraine. Let's send that signal to Putin that we're behind Ukraine. Let's tell Poland that they can move those MiGs to the Ukrainian pilots.
Let's just keep amplifying the war machine. Let's just keep signaling to Putin that we want to keep going. These people are insane. There's no talk of peace.
And we will ensure that Ukraine and our NATO partners are getting all of the support that they need. Mm-hmm. America has to be on the side of freedom. It's who we are.
Okay, well, I've had enough of you, Joni. Now, why would she be so opposed to Pete Hegseth? Well, maybe it's because how much of the war machine flows through her state? From what I understand, there's quite a few contracts that her state gets. And with that, her state gets all this money. So when the money goes to Ukraine, it gets back and it comes back to the defense contractors in her state. Yeah. So we have this. Our military exists to defend America and destroy her enemies. Pete Hegseth will refocus the DOD on that mission. Let's listen to this. Is Mike Lee, the Utah senator.
Expect him. Get this, Larry. He wants to take the Department of Defense and make it about defense again. Wants to make it about projecting a lethal, intimidating, powerful military force rather than a woke enterprise engaged in a grand social experiment to placate the leftmost base of the Democratic Party. That's why they're fighting him so hard. That's why we need him, and I expect him to be confirmed and to do a great job as the Secretary of Defense.
Yeah, see, the left wants to continue the wokeism in the Department of Defense, in the Pentagon. I mean, you saw all the crazy stuff that was going on during the Biden administration. They want to keep the crazy going. But we have Senator Kevin Cramer. Here's what he told
named after my very long and very frank discussion with Pete, after talking to people and friends of Pete's who know him personally, after looking through all of the information, all the allegations and accusations against him by people who are unnamed, if there are people at all, I absolutely believe that Pete is the right person for the job at this time. I've always liked his attitude about kicking down doors and changing the processes and disrupting the place. I've always loved the fact that as a face for peace through strength, Pete has a great one, because I always say that we talk a lot about deterrence. We talk a lot about nuclear deterrence, and we usually reference then some sort of a weapon system. But deterrence isn't just a weapon system; it's an attitude, it's a culture, it's a system that includes the leadership itself. Pete is all those things. Plus, he's a warrior's warrior. He's somebody that the rank and file military men and women can look to and go, finally, there's somebody at the helm that represents us, not just the guys with stars with stars on their shoulder, which I love them as well. Don't get me wrong. But Pete convinced me, and all of the accusations and allegations against him have convinced me that they're either not there or at least nobody's talking. And so I think we got to move on with this. Let's get Pete across the finish line.
Look, the far out liberals try to smear him. Okay, they're going to try to smear other cabinet nominees. There's no question about that. But they should fail, because there's no evidence with Pete. I mean, I don't want to even go through it. We've talked about it on the show. The police report never brought charges. The main thing is, Senator Cramer, his agenda for the Pentagon. Give me a minute on that, because that's the most important thing. He's going to bring new life to the Pentagon, to the Defense Department, to warriors, as he has put it, and as you just put it. America needs peace through strength, as Mr. Trump has put it. What do you hear from his agenda?
Well, one of the things that he talked a lot about with me, and it really resonated with me, and that is the processes of things like even acquisition, research and development. Why do we spend years researching something when you can turn to Silicon Valley and there are probably 3 or 4 or 5 or maybe 10 entrepreneurs that already have an idea using things like AI and new technologies? But we're caught in this long traditional rut of making simple things hard. He wants to get to making hard things simple, with integrity, with dignity, but that was the thing that resonated as much as anything, Larry, is the process that moves things along quicker. Listen, we have to move at the speed of China. We do not move at the speed of China if we're going to keep up and catch up and get ahead again.
And we have this here. This is really interesting. Okay. First of all, we have the Washington Post is attacking Pete Hegseth so much that it's now decided that the Bronze Star, which Hegseth was awarded twice, is meh and not very impressive, which is weird because the Washington Post wrote tons of articles about collusion hoaxer Robert Mueller's Bronze Star. And they have a couple links here. Bronze Star, like those Hegseth earned, are common among military officers, Washington Post. And then we have all this. Opinion, Trump's miserable crew has never been so desperate. Daily 202, prospect of Trump's firing Mueller keeps becoming more. Opinion, someone get this man a lawyer. Yeah, so the Washington Post, they've got their knives out for Pete Hegseth. But look at this. Would you support Kari Lake replacing Rhino Joni Ernst in the Senate? That's all the talk that's been online today. Joni Ernst, her opposition to Hegseth is, think about this. Gunter Eagleman writing that Kari Lake could primary Joni Ernst. And there was some question as to, well, wait a minute. Wait, Kari Lake's from Arizona. Why would she suddenly transplant to to Ohio. Why would you do that? Well, apparently Kari Lake is actually from Ohio. That's her home state. Now, I think it would be kind of strange if she did go to Ohio and with all of the I'm with Arizona, I'm going to fight for Arizonans and all that kind of language that she's been presenting. But if we have to unseat a rhino in Ohio, by all means, by any means necessary. Okay. Here we have a former DOD official, Elbridge Colby, on why Pete Hegseth should be confirmed. This was on CNBC.
For why he'd be Pete Hegseth's been out there in the Senate making the case as well as on media. He's got a lot of allies coming out for him, vouching for him. I think my view is that, frankly, the president of the United States deserves a presumption that the people that he nominates, should be those the ones who serve in those positions. I mean, I think we talked a little bit earlier. What do these this pick mean or that pick mean? I think this is Donald Trump's agenda. It's putting Americans first. It's ending the forever wars, as he said. I don't start wars, I stop them. So I think that's the way I look at it. In terms of how the Senate's going to react, that's obviously sort of unpredictable. But I think Pete and others are making a very strong case for why he'd be an excellent Secretary of Defense.
This is it here. DC Drano, he says, okay, hear me out. Kari Lake was, I said Ohio. I meant Iowa, excuse me. Kari Lake was born and raised in Iowa. What if she returns home to primary Joni Ernst in 2026 and takes her Senate seat? That's been the talk. I mean, look at this post, got 2.9 million impressions, 7,500 responses. Okay? Let's dive a little deeper and see some of these folks here, what they're saying. Say what you will, but Kari is really good at winning GOP primaries, and that's all it would take to win in dark red Iowa now. Chuck Calesto, that could work. She's from Iowa, has the national profile. What do y'all say? Juanita Broadwick, she is chiming in. Great idea. Arizona's always been rigged against Kari. Time to take it home. And that's a sad fact that Juanita's bringing up. I mean, they rigged it against her in the governorship. They rigged it against her in the Senate race. Like, how many more times are you going to let them rig it? And I mean, how much she fought so damn hard in that state, and the cards are stacked against her. I hate to see her walk from that state, but maybe it's time to go to a state that she can win. I want to see Kari Lake succeed. I want to see her in a position where she can bring her intellect and her style and her vision and execute it. Let's see what other people are saying. Gunther Eagleman, I support this. Good suggestion, says Ian Miles Chong. Iowa's a red state, but Kari Lake could make it competitive again. Worst candidate I've ever seen. Oh, yeah. If I were her, I'd be fed up with being cheated by the system. Trump should have given her something in the cabinet. I agree with that. I was expecting, well, maybe we'll see something with Kari Lake in the Senate, in Trump's cabinet. Who knows? Jeremy Carl says she's a terrible candidate who lost 2 winnable races. Okay, Jeremy obviously is not looking like, he's only looking at the surface. Those races were all rigged against Kari Lake. All right? Will Chamberlain, she underperformed Trump by 7 points. Worst performance by any candidate in a competitive race. Okay, I don't like these people. I don't like what they're saying. No, I disagree. Those races were stolen. J.D. Vance had this to say 14 hours ago. Led by President Trump, we're fighting for Pete Hegseth, and we're doing so because Pete Hegseth will fight for our troops. For too long, the Pentagon has been led by people who lose wars. Hegseth is a man who fought in those wars. We've got his back. Donald Trump, he put this out on his Truth Social. Pete Hegseth is doing very well. His support is strong and deep, much more so than the fake news would have you believe. He was a great student at Princeton, Harvard. With a military state of mind, he will be fantastic. High-energy Secretary of Defense. One who leads with charisma and skill. Pete's a winner, and there's nothing that can be done to change that. Benny Johnson. This is also an interesting development. This happened a day ago. President-elect Trump dined. This is in vein with all of these appointments. He dined with Pfizer and Eli Lilly execs at Mar-a-Lago, and he brought RFK Jr. with him. I mean, talk about a savage move. I'll have more on that in a minute. Erica Knight, we firmly believe that Kash Patel's appointment as FBI director will mark a pivotal moment for law enforcement and public safety across the U.S. So Kash Patel getting a major endorsement from the National Police Association. That is a good sign. We want Kash Patel to get that nomination. I still think that Trump should pull the recess nomination card and get this thing done. Here's what George Beasy Tweets wrote. President Trump is savage for this. Pfizer and other big pharma execs came to Mar-a-Lago to beg and lobby for their devilish interests, and Trump brought RFK Jr. to the meeting to fact-check any lies they might have spewed. The days of big pharma tyranny are coming to an end. Could you imagine? I could only imagine the look on those pharma execs' face when they got to sit across the table from RFK Jr. Oh, man, they were probably just sweating bullets. Brooke Singman, she's reporting here, new current and former U.S. national security officials and lawmakers say when looking at Kash Patel's resume objectively, he's one of the most experienced people to ever be nominated as FBI director. And more opposition is coming out against Tulsi Gabbard. But I think this is really funny. Look what's on the screen. Nearly 100 national security officials have reportedly signed a letter expressing opposition to Tulsi Gabbard's confirmation as National Director of Intelligence. Are 50 of those the same people that signed on to that Hunter Biden laptop letter that's saying it was Russian disinformation? I mean, these people have no credibility anymore. I mean, they could say 1,000 national security officials and it wouldn't make a difference. Okay? But this is what the deep state does when they're trying to derail the America First agenda. All right? They all circled the wagons when Hunter's laptop was discovered by a laptop repair shop. Oh no, it's Russian disinfo. Social media swarmed, suppressed any talk of it, any coverage of it. New York Post getting literally locked out of their Twitter account for reporting on it. I mean, give me a break, guys. So you and your 100 national security officials can go take a hike. We don't care. Not at all. Here's this. Pete Hegseth, he had a fiery press conference on Capitol Hill. Let's listen in.
Pride in the media. You fight, you go do tough things in tough places on behalf of your country, and sometimes that changes you a little bit. And by the grace of God, and my Lord and Savior, I had an opportunity to come on up out of it and do great things with great veterans organizations that fought for vets, that fought for reform at the VA and for war fighters, and at the Fox News Channel to advocate for those very same causes. And I'm proud of what I fought for. I'm not going to back down from them one bit. I will answer all of these senators' questions, but this will not be a process tried in the media. You fight, you go do tough things in tough places.
And we've got a longer version of that clip. That was only 30 seconds. This is a little bit longer. Blistering statement from Pete Hegseth.
And I'm proud of what I fought for. I'm not going to back down from them one bit. I will answer all of these senators' questions, but this will not be a process tried in the media. I don't answer to anyone in this group. None of you. Not to that camera at all. I answer to President Trump, who received 76 million votes on behalf and a mandate for change. I answer to the 100 senators who are part of this process and those in the committee. And I answer to my Lord and Savior and my wife and my family. I'm proud to be here. And as long as Donald Trump wants me in this fight, I'm going to be standing right here in this fight, fighting to bring our Pentagon back to what it needs to be.
What have your Senator? Wow. Former National Security Advisor Robert C. O'Brien on the Kash Patel angle. Kash Patel is right for the FBI. Coming from the Wall Street Journal, President-elect Trump has assembled one of the most diverse and capable cabinets in American history, and he's done so at record pace. His nomination of Kash Patel to be director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation is an excellent choice that adds further luster to the new administration. So that is a good sign. Okay, so this is what I mentioned earlier about Joni Ernst. Beard Vet posted this a day ago. Do you know what state supplies billions worth of artillery shells to Ukraine? You guessed it, Iowa. Joni Ernst doesn't want that to end, hence a no for Hegseth, because he wants to end wars. And she actually lobbied to sit on the Doge caucus. Yeah, did you know that? We reported that the other day. Isn't it interesting? So she's going to sit on the Doge caucus, At the same time, she's going to try to oppose Pete Hegseth, but the pressure's mounting on her. I'm gonna show you what she recently posted. Okay. Pete Hegseth posted this a day ago. Maybe it's time for a Secretary of Defense who's led in combat, been on patrol for days, pulled a trigger, heard bullets whiz by, called in close air support, led medevacs, dodged IEDs, and understands to his core the power of this photo because he's been on that knee before. Okay? Man, that hurt. That hits hard, man. That hits real hard. Pregnant redhead about Joni Ernst. Her no vote on Pete Hegseth has gotten us all to look closely at who Joni Ernst really is and realize why she needs to be primaried, hence the talk of Kari Lake stepping into that position. Listen to this. Here's Charlie Kirk posted this 13 hours ago. Pete Hegseth's lawyer, Tim Parlatore, is now threatening to sue women behind what he calls an extortion attempt for a breach of confidentiality agreement. And all this stuff, to me, when you know these women coming out and they're making allegations, it all feels like we're going right back to the Kavanaugh hearing. All these people coming out of the woodwork. Where were they before? Right? They only seem to show up when there's some kind of an appointment on the line. Let's hear what Pete Hegseth's lawyer has to say.
Settlement agreement
today that Pete Hegseth has done is denying that allegation of sexual assault. That was kind of one of the first things that came up after Trump picked him to be his defense secretary. He has denied it fervently. It was settled in an agreement with this woman in 2017. Yesterday, when you were talking to Jake Tapper, you said that you believed it's extortion. But of course, as you know, extortion is also a crime. So if you felt that it was extortion, why not go to the police at the time?
Oh, come on.
Well, it was a decision that we made, and the email from the attorney. It was something that I don't know if it quite rises to the level of a criminal extortion that the police would take it on, but I think it certainly does meet the definition under the California law for civil extortion, and it was something that we were considering at the time, and quite frankly, with the violation of the agreement, if he is not confirmed as the Secretary of Defense, we may still bring a civil extortion claim against her.
So if he is not ultimately confirmed because of these allegations, you may take legal action against the person at the center of that agreement.
Absolutely. If the false claims of somebody that was part of an extortion that was then put out in violation of a settlement agreement ultimately causes him to lose his future employment opportunities, then yes, that is something that is worth bringing a lawsuit against her and her friend and potentially even the attorney for, yes.
We've heard some people say that she should be released from that non-disclosure agreement that was part of the settlement agreement. Is there any consideration between you and Mr. Hegseth of doing that?
What a dumb question.
Well, so first of all, it's not a non-disclosure agreement is something where one party agrees not to disclose. This is a confidential settlement agreement that had confidentiality on both sides. That agreement has since been breached by her. And so as a result, I sent notice to her attorney that agreement is no longer has any force and effect. That's one of the reasons why I can talk about it here, because prior to that, the agreement prevented Mr. Hegseth from talking about her conduct. So there is no NDA to release her from. And if she wants to go and talk about it, she can do it. I mean, certainly she would do it at her own peril of a further defamation lawsuit. But and additionally,
well, that's news.
NDAs,
we didn't. People have been calling for her to be able to speak, and you're saying, I mean, you're his attorney. You're saying that from the agreement which you negotiated, that she can come out and speak on CNN or wherever she chooses.
Of course. However, if she doesn't tell the truth, if she repeats these false statements, then she will be subject to a defamation lawsuit. But no, she's well aware of that. Her attorney was well aware that because of the breach of the agreement, that is no longer in any force and effect. She is free to speak if she wants. I've heard people saying, we should release her so she can testify before the committee. There is no such thing as an NDA that prohibits somebody from complying with a subpoena.
Okay, so you're saying that she could
that's
be.
That's not us.
Wow. You're saying she could be released. In terms of settlement agreements,
she's just drooling now. Oh, she can be released? Oh, call her up now. Get her on CNN. Yeah, she can't wait to try to derail Trump. Brett Marcolis, Trump doubles down on Hegseth's support as media campaign against him appears to lose momentum. Hegseth will be confirmed, he says, but not if Caitlin Collins can have her way. Other nomination news, President-elect Trump announced Thursday night that former PayPal executive David Sachs will serve as the White House AI and crypto czar, a newly created position aimed at advancing U.S. policy in artificial intelligence and cryptocurrency. That is according to the Epoch Times. And as we're discussing what is going on with crypto, let's just check in on the Bitcoin price right now. And it looks like, what? Bitcoin is at $99,306. It broke 100,000 just the other day, and it's still flirting with that number. And Trump is he's a crypto positive president, which is good. And I can only envision crypto is going to go much higher. Okay, so look. Okay, this was interesting. I wanted to share this with you. This was published 3 hours ago. Ellen Sanzel, CSAN. First, it was Matt Gaetz. Next, Pete Hegseth. Third, Tulsi Gabbard. Know it and recognize it and reject it. This is the anatomy of the smear. Initiation often starts with an anonymous or unverified accusation, especially timed to influence an election or nomination process. And then the propagation utilizes media, social media, or other platforms to spread the narrative, often without substantial evidence. The objective, to derail a political nomination, election campaign, or public figure's reputation by creating doubt or negative perception. And that's exactly what they did with Matt Gaetz. And Matt Gaetz backed out. Now, I don't know if there was really maybe there was a bigger game to play there. Gaetz pulling out of that position. He resigned from Congress, and now there's a possibility he might run for governor of Florida. Of course, there's been talk that DeSantis might actually be appointed to head the DOD, but Trump and Vance are firmly behind Pete Hegseth. But there's also, like I said, the opportunity for Gaetz to be appointed into the Senate. And there's also talk of Laura Trump being appointed to the Senate by DeSantis. We'll watch that. This can be really interesting to watch how this all plays out. But be aware that, if they go after, if they already claimed Matt Gaetz, right? They're running around victory laps. Yeah, we got Matt Gaetz, right? Well, if Pete Hegseth drops, if their smear campaign works and he drops out, which appears that it's not, thus far, they're going to go after Tulsi Gabbard next. They're already going against her. And then who comes next? They're going to go after RFK Jr. and anybody else. I mean, listen, they would love to take out RFK Jr. So we got to stand behind these nominations. We have to, of course, we have to be critical. We have to look at them. I mean, I'm not entirely enthusiastic that we have a neocon like Marco Rubio running Secretary of State, but, we're going to hold his feet to the fire. Here is J.D. Vance on Pete Hegseth.
Pete Hegseth is going to get his appearing before the Senate Armed Services Committee, not a sham hearing before the American media. We believe that Pete Hegseth is the right guy to lead the Department of Defense. That's why President Trump nominated him. We're not abandoning this nomination. We're not going to make it easy for people to allow them. Our Secretary of Defense is Donald J. Trump, who just won an election by a very significant consent of the United States Senate. That's who determines who the Secretary of Defense is. I fully support Pete. I think Pete's going to get confirmed, and we are completely behind him. I have talked to Joni. I've talked to a number of my colleagues about this nomination and about other nominations. All I'm asking is that people actually allow the Senate process to work. We do not determine important government officials based on anonymous sourcing from the American media. We determine who our officials are through the nomination process, the advice and consent process of the United States Senate. That's how it should happen, and that's how the president's nominees are going to work through this process.
Yeah, they're just trying to try him in the court of public opinion. Here we have This is earlier this week. A lot of people thought that Pete Hegseth was going to be gone by today. Let's listen to Scott Jennings on CNN. I just love this guy taking CNN to task.
He was confident, so a vote of confidence in his guy, but also realistic. You know, he didn't say he's been assured that he will be confirmed. So it tells me that he's got some realism here, that there's still a process that they're going through. Hegseth has some work to do. But I think early this week, a lot of folks were thinking Hegseth was going to be gone by today, and I think he's in better shape today than he was when we started this week. The PR offensive to get back on track, I think, is working, and having Trump come out tonight and strongly say, this is my guy, he loves the military, it's a good, he was confident.
And Trump did, in fact, come out. We're going to get to that in a second here. He did go and interview with NBC News. Donald Trump says he thinks Pete Hegseth can get confirmed in an NBC News interview. Let's play a clip from that.
Looks like Pete is doing well now. I mean, people were a little bit concerned. He's a young guy with a tremendous track record, actually. He went to Princeton and went to Harvard. He was a good student at both, but he loves the military, and I think people are starting to see it. So we'll be working on his nomination along with a lot of others.
Since you bring him up, do you still have confidence in Pete Hegseth?
Yes, I do. I really do. He's a very smart guy. I've known him through Fox, but I've known him for a long time. And he's basically a military guy. I mean, every time I talk to him, all he wants to talk about is the military. He's a military guy. Looks like...
You know, these media people make me so sick. Like, just watching her lean into that question right here. Like, since you bring him up, hoo-hoo. Yeah, if this was a couple months ago, her fangs would have been out. But of course, you know, that's what you expect from the media. And then there was this interesting, they're all saying that Pete Hegseth's got a drinking problem. All right. Real America's Voice, Stinchfeld, had this to say.
Be blunt with you.
Senator, is he currently drinking, or has he just said he's not going to touch alcohol if he becomes...
Well, I didn't ask him if he's had a drink today or if he's currently drinking. My commitment that I was looking for was that he won't drink, he won't touch alcohol, and that he'd be ready for a phone call at 3 in the afternoon or 3 in the morning and every hour in between.
Now, let me tell you something, folks. I'm going to be blunt with you, honest. You know I'm an open book when it comes to my life. I probably have 1 or 2 vodkas every night.
Maybe 3.
There's a couple nights during a week I might skip. I never am out of control. I never lose control. I never lose control of my faculties. I never get flat out drunk. Pete Hegseth doesn't need to stop drinking. You know, a cocktail at night, that doesn't mean he can't be defense secretary. Who are these high and mighty reporters? I would love to know what reporter asked that question and then go down to the local bar in Washington, D.C. and who's drunk on the end of it. Probably that reporter. And these senators are saying don't have a cocktail. I just told you at the beginning of this program, I'm sure they're toasting scotches in the members' bar. All of them are hypocrites. It is outrageous to me. Again, more reasoning to stand up for Pete Hegseth.
Oh, and even Trump was asked about this.
You don't drink yourself.
No.
You've talked about how devastating drinking can be.
Yeah.
How concerned are you that the person who you picked for this top job at the Defense Department, at least according to those who've worked with him, has struggled with drinking?
But I've spoken to people that know him very well, and they say he does not have a drinking problem.
There you go. I mean, the media is out in force, and this is Joni Ernst, right? Nick Sortor, 21 hours ago. Today, folks in Iowa and across the country are honoring the life of George Floyd. This chick needs to be sacked. She is not on the side of we the people.
Today, many people across the United States are honoring the life of George Floyd.
Yeah, that's all we need to play for that clip. And the pressure's getting to her. 5 hours ago, she posted this. Pete Hegseth and I will continue our constructive conversations as we move forward together in this process. We plan to meet again next week. At a minimum, we agree that he deserves the opportunity to lay out his vision for our warfighters at a fair hearing. Yeah, maybe she started seeing all that talk about primarying her with Kari Lake, and she got a little bit nervous. right? 4 hours ago, USA Today, Pete Hegseth vows he won't drink a drop of alcohol if confirmed as defense secretary. I mean, really? Stinchfield just laid it out. These people are all drunk in Washington at the end of their day. So spare me the high and mighty attitude these people have. And speaking of confirmations, Bernie Sanders is actually considering supporting Robert F. Kennedy for HHS secretary. That's a good sign. I think what he's saying about the food industry is exactly correct. Bernie Sanders looks like he's backing RFK Jr. That's good news. 10 hours ago, Bernie Sanders confirmed he's considering supporting RFK for HHS. Let's listen.
Foods and the food.
I think what he is saying about the food industry is exactly correct.
Senator Sanders, as chair of the HELP committee, has really sounded the alarm on ultra-processed foods and the food and beverage industry, drawing comparisons to the fight against big tobacco decades ago. Interestingly enough, RFK Jr. has also talked a lot about food policy, additives, taking on the food industry. That's something part of his platform. It's taken off online with the Make America Healthy Again movement. So I asked Senator Sanders if that's an area where he could potentially work with the Trump administration if RFK Jr. is confirmed.
I think you have a food industry concerned about their profits, could care less about the health of the American people. I think they have to be taken on. I think, on the other hand, when Mr. Kennedy talks about taking fluoride out of our water system, I think what the scientific community will tell you that would be a disaster in terms of dental health in this country. His views on vaccine are in very wrong in so many ways. So we will see how the process unfolds. So I think what he's saying about the food industry makes sense to me. A lot of other things that he's saying are extremely dangerous.
Yeah. I wonder who's paying him to say that.
So I tried to press Senator Sanders on if he's made up his mind about President-elect Trump's health picks, how he's preparing for the confirmation process ahead.
We are preparing. We're going to be prepared to ask the right questions. And it's not only the confirmation hearings. It will be discussions that we have behind closed doors as well.
At this point, have you made up your mind, or you're going to go through the process? Any other health-related, as the chair of HELP, are there any other health-related picks, agency picks, that you're concerned about?
Well, I think I know Kennedy somewhat over the years. I do not know his other picks, so I'm going to have to sit down and talk with him. The other thing I think that's important is Trump over the years, and Kennedy himself, has talked about as a health problem the fact that we pay by far the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs. And if I'm not mistaken, Kennedy has talked about the need for Americans not to pay more than the people in other countries. I think that's exactly right. And I hope Trump keeps his word in terms of going forward in something that he has talked about for years, substantially lowering the cost of prescription drugs in this country.
All the Bernie bros are cheering now. Okay, Alexandra B. And this goes to the point I brought up earlier. You surrendered on Gates, and so they came for Pete Hegseth. If you surrender on Hegseth, they will come for RFK Jr. next. And it'll be someone else after RFK Jr., someone after that. Stop the cycle now. Stand up for all of President Trump's nominees. Laura Loomer posting this. Nikki Haley, listen to this. Nikki Haley couldn't be Secretary of Defense after President Trump said he didn't want her in the second administration. So it seems she's using her BFF, Joni Ernst, to attack Pete Hegseth in an attempt to get Ernst or another warmongering rhino to step in.
Vice President.
Would you be poised to recommend Trump choose Haley as his vice president candidate if he is in fact the nominee?
Well, if he is the nominee, absolutely. I think Nikki Haley is the whole package. She is a very firm leader, and she gets foreign policy. So I really believe in Nikki Haley, and I think she would be an exceptional choice either for president or for vice president.
All right, she did a great job.
Oh, wow. Well, yeah, we don't want to see that at all, do we? No. Nikki Haley, she can go back to her home state and cry in her oatmeal. So we've got a lot going on here with the Hegseth nomination, Trump doubling down, which is good, getting a lot of Senate support. And, I think this is really important. This is probably one of the most important points we need to drive home about the billions of dollars in artillery shells to Ukraine. They're manufactured in Iowa. So if Joni Ernst doesn't want that to end, a no for Hegseth. So keep all these things in the front of your mind as we go into the weekend, understanding what might just happen. But it looks like we've got a lot of talk about Kari Lake coming in to primary her. Joni Ernst is getting nervous. But Donald Trump, they're all standing behind him. Going back to the Maha here, Maha is breaking through. Biden's FDA chief was grilled in a Senate hearing today over artificial food dyes, the obesity and diabetes crisis, and the corrupt food industry. He had a shocking moment of moral clarity about his own role in the crisis. So Bernie Sanders, and we just mentioned Bernie Sanders is getting behind RFK. Of course, he doesn't like him on some of the other things, but the message that we have been presenting for many, many years, whether it's vaccines or the health freedom movement, having RFK in that position is absolutely what we need. So the fact that Bernie Sanders is talking could have some influence on other people. So that's what we got. There you have it. The establishment's playbook exposed. Anonymous sources, coordinated media hits, and rhino betrayals. But Pete Hegseth is not backing down, and neither should we. This is bigger than one nomination. It's about whether we will let the swamp keep control of our military or finally put a real warrior in charge. So what do you think? Is Joni Ernst representing Iowa's interests or the military-industrial complex bottom line? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. And while you're standing with Pete, show your support with our exclusive Mag Avengers gear at shop.nextnewsnetwork.com. Let the swamp know that we're not backing down.